Yes. Hey, welcome everybody to our webinar, SICTIC, CTEM Startup Club, CTEM Insel, on the topic of investment into medtech startups. I'm glad we have again so many attendants. Over 50 people are in this call. This call is also preparation for our physical event, which will take place in March in CTEM in Bern. You will hear some info about that later. I'm joined by three fantastic panelists, as well as representatives from the organizing organizations. And the agenda, we will do it as follows. We will introduce first SICTIC. Most of you will know it, but you'll get the latest and greatest from the president, Thomas Dübendorfer. Then we will have GegetSiC from the CTEM Startup Club presenting you what that club is all about. And then we will introduce our three panelists, which I will then interview in a moderated panel session. I ask you to please switch off whatever noise you may have in your room and switch on your brains, because at the end of our panel discussion, you will have the chance to ask questions. So the chat function will be monitored, and we'll take questions from that chat function. You can probably also type these functions as we have the panel going on. That's going to be happening in the last 15 minutes of this webinar. The webinar is going to last about an hour until 1 o'clock. Good, let's jump right in. I would like to ask the president of SICTIC, Thomas Dübendorfer, to tell us a little bit about what is SICTIC all about. Just got to get to the right.
Yes, actually, we decided to let CTEM speak first. So GegetSiC goes first, and then I just conclude afterwards.
So you make these decisions without telling me. That's okay, yes. Fine. So we will start with GegetSiC from the CTEM Startup Club, our freshly elected CEO in this position. You'll see a picture of our wonderful building, and we hear a short introduction from GegetSiC.
Yeah. Hello, everybody. Thanks for having me. So we are CTEM Startup Club, and we are the MedTech hub. Our focus is to support MedTech startups on the early stage and seed funding. And for that, we are supported with the location and, of course, with our partners. Location is really ideal. We are located in Insel Campus, Bern, next to the biggest hospital of Switzerland, the Inselspital, next to the CTEM Insel, the Swiss Institute of Translational Medicine, all the University of Bern clinics around us. We have 45 clinics. And of course, so logically, there we are, where we are acting as a bridge, connector, matchmaking point for startups, that they can have access to all the clinicians, all the research, all the superior doctors around. And of course, we do also partnerships, and the partners are giving their services to the startups. You can see we have partners like big names like Johnson & Johnson, Straumann, Siemens, and Swiss big companies like Swisscom, Siesta Daring, and of course, there are different disciplines depending on what our startups need, starting from regulatory reimbursement, engineers, market access, so everything you need. And no startups, no investors, right? So there we are. We also organize pitching events for our startups when they can meet investors, which are the corporates. And one of our dear partners is SICTIC, with whom we already have a good experience doing a pitching event. And the next one comes in March 12th, just marking your calendars. And yeah, so what we provide: partnerships, co-working space, you saw the beautiful building, matchmaking through our events, just gatherings, whatever you need. We are the contact points. We share knowledge constantly. And of course, we support. And one of our big supporters is Heiko, just sitting there in front of you. Please, if you have questions and you want to make your startup to thrive, don't hesitate and contact us. I'm there for you. And yeah, let's enjoy this cool discussion.
Thank you so much, Getzig. She's really the CEO, but also the good soul of the CTEM Startup Club. I'm also in the board of that club, and I can assure you it's a great buzz. And we finally have such a wonderful institution in Bern, the canton where I'm living in. And I'm very proud and happy that we have this institution. And we will this year also have the 3-year CTEM Startup Club event. Now, SICTIC is already a lot older. And there's a lot of members, and we'll hear the latest from Thomas, the president.
Sure. So thanks for presenting the CTEM Startup Club. As mentioned, we have collaborated in the past, and we continue with this collaboration because it was a great success to bring together two worlds, those which have all the knowledge about medtech and us, which have a great network of investors. Now, SICTIC itself is a not-for-profit association. I'm a co-founder and president of SICTIC. And we really focus on startups that set up shop in Switzerland and then use Switzerland as a test market and then go international. Now, for startups, our services are completely for free. They just need to be good enough to be put on stage in front of our investors. And then hopefully we can connect the best investors with the most ambitious founders. We do that about 100 times a year by financing startups. So last year we had exactly 100 financing rounds, and the 2 years before we also had 100 or more financing rounds. So we're very active as an angel club. The money of our investors has been consumed by more than 300 different startups by far. And they also got a lot of follow-on funding from venture capitalists, institutional investors, corporate ventures, and so on. So these 300 startups, which are in our SICTIC portfolio, where at least one angel participated in the equity financing round, they have raised another 1.8 billion of gross capital. So this, of course, gives a lot of chances to founders to make great ideas into great products, and it also created more than 6,000 jobs. And I'm really happy that we can now also serve you with MedTech startup deal flow, together with the really savvy partners. So if a startup has a great idea, they can use infrastructure, the lab, and the experts from the CTEM side. And we hope you like it. And today you're going to learn how they differ, medtech startups from other startups in tech, which you might have seen. And with this, I give over to Heiko to the panel.
Thank you so much, Thomas. So truly amazing. It's really a powerhouse in terms of investors. The SICTIC institution, extremely professional meetings. I can only encourage you to join, to take in that knowledge. It's a fantastically managed process also. And the startups are treated in an extremely fair way, I believe, and I can highly recommend it. Good. So now we just jump right in. We will now start with the introduction of our 3 wonderful panelists. And we're going to start with Carsten Laue. Carsten is a medtech expert since many, many years. He has seen it all, startup, board, big companies, small companies, success, failure, everything. And we will ask every panelist to give a short introduction about himself as well as the institution behind. Hello, Carsten.
Thank you, Heiko. Hello, everyone. So yeah, I'm a life science entrepreneur with a passion for innovation. In the past, I was a CEO of an ophthalmology startup. We started with an empty office and 4 patents. I set up the whole quality management system, receiving CE mark of our eye implant. We went through several financing rounds and we prepared for market launch, and then we got acquired by a leader. And as you said, Heiko, what in hindsight may sound like a straight journey to an exit was, in fact, a very bumpy road with many setbacks. Today, I'm managing partner of M2care Venture Studio. M2care Venture Studio is out of an initiative of bioMérieux, located in Lyon, where we can make investments in Switzerland, Germany, and in France. We build and finance medtech startups and digital health startups. Together with a founding team, we review the value proposition, we work on product market fit and the financial planning before we make an investment. So we spend quite a lot of time working together with the founding team. But as a venture builder, certainly we also remain very active on the operational level once we have made an investment. We participate in pre-seed and in seed rounds, and we do 2 investments per year, knowing that we see about 300 projects a year. Out of these 300, we make 2 investments. We can invest up to 3 million euros per investment or per company.
So you see 300 and you invest in 2. So for the startups out there, it's very simple. You just got to be better than the 298 other ones, right?
Yeah, it's a highly selective process, but we also very early, so we see things that are really, really early, and sometimes we say we work a little bit on that. And so. Okay, but I'm also on the board of 2 medtech companies, one of which is MachineMD, which is located in the startup, in the CITIM Startup Hub.
Yeah, they presented the last MedTech Investor Day we had, right?
Yeah, that was fantastic.
That was very well.
They continue to do very well. I just met also Carsten as well as Dominik Zen, the CEO, last night at the Board Mesh event, also in Bern. And it's a good journey. Great. So thank you so much, Carsten. We'll continue with Alex. Alex, tell us who you are. What is SY Health Advisors? From where are you calling? That's in your case always a difficult question, right?
Thank you, Heiko. So hello, everyone. My name is Alex, and I started my career in the US, working with healthcare providers, implementing EMR systems, improving their operations. So my clients back then were Kaiser Permanente, individual clinics in the US. And from there, I transitioned into medical devices, and I joined Samsung and was part of bringing one of the first wearable ECG patches to the market back around 2015 or so. And from there, I went into patient monitoring and commercializing the new devices, and basically working around the world with medtech devices. So most recently, I joined Biotronic in Germany, and that was a cardiac implant company doing commercialization of their products and selling it around the world. So recently, I've transitioned into investing myself into medical startups and leveraging my experience just working with healthcare providers and organizations around the world, helping companies, I guess, figure out what their product is, as well as the commercial aspects, the tricky commercial parts about bringing that product to the market. So now I'm alternating my time between Switzerland and Los Angeles.
Okay. And right now you are in?
I am in Zurich right now.
In Zurich. Okay. That makes it a lot easier here. Good. Okay. Thank you very much, Alex. And our third panelist is Roberto Tracia. He's joining us by phone. We had some technical issues, but I think he made it. Roberto, are you with us?
Hi, I am with you. Do you hear me?
Yes, very well. Thank you.
Okay, so sorry about that. I don't know what happened anyway. So my name is Roberto Tracia. As was said, I am a partner with Oaklins. We are a M&A advisory firm here in Switzerland, but also in other 39 countries all over the world, with more than 800 M&A advisors. And we what we do is advise on transactions. We have various industries we are particularly focused on, and medtech is one of these industries. Particularly in Switzerland, it's a sector where we have been very active. We are active in mid-sized deals. Often it's normal successions, but often it is a startup or ex-startup situation where we are asked to find the suitable buyer for the next stage for the company. I think we will go more into depth. So what we do is we do a also quarterly or regularly updates on the medtech industry, where we see the industry going, of course, from an M&A perspective. And we just finalized our last report. It will be released in the next days, and I'm happy to share with you the new insights or the updated insights. And the statistics show that pricing is continues to be very robust. The transactions are currently still above average, although the volume has been decreasing in the last few quarters, but it's still above average. Pricing is still very attractive, and the outlook is good. Mm-hmm. So that's in brief from my end. I'm happy to
and of course, I have to ask Roberto, would you make a free copy of your report available to the participants on the call?
Yes.
Excellent. So you will use 66 participants. It's your lucky day. Today's your lucky day.
Yeah.
And you will, in the follow-up email, receive some information from Joël and the good folks at SICTIC on how you can get access to this, I'm very sure, very useful and insightful report, courtesy of Roberto today, his free gift for you. Okay. So these are the three panelists. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Heiko Visarius. I've been in the medtech industry for many, many years, 20 years in corporate. I started my first startup when I came to Switzerland 30 years ago. I commercialized it with Synthes, exited in 2003, spent 10 years with Medtronic. Then I had enough of matrix organized American companies with a lot of politics, PowerPoint, and bullshit bingo, and started my own company in which I do coaching for startups. I just finished coaching number 425 of a medtech company. I coach for Swiss, Canton Bern, and the European Union. Other than that, I have 6 board mandates. I run certain shows as a moderator. Most importantly, the SICTIC webinar and the SICTIC investor event in March that you will hear about. But I also do the Swiss MedTech Day, the Roche Innovation Day, the Google Health Day, and some others. All right, let's jump in. Carsten, I'm going to pick your brain first. So when the 299, 300 startups come to you, how much time do you really honestly spend looking at the slide deck, and what are the 2-3 things that are you really looking for?
Well, first, I should explain that we not only wait for projects coming to us, so we also reach out, and we have collaborations with the tech transfer offices in France and also with EPFL in Lausanne to be informed upfront before there's a team sometimes. But replying to your question, we have it organized, so there's a first level of screening of the deck that can take just 5-10 minutes. Then if this, and just to check if it's within our investment criteria. If it is within our investment criteria, then the whole team looks at it, at the deck. And there as well, we also now start applying a little bit of AI to analyze the deck and to compare it to real world data, so that we don't have to dig into that ourselves. But that's, I would say, fairly, everyone in the team, I would say, fair enough, 15 minutes. So from the 200, I would say we get, from the 300 that are not going into the next level, I would say that's about 50%. So, yeah. And then we got, so 50%, 150 is what we, we have weekly meetings, so we see between 3 and 5 projects that we discuss. So it's about 150 that we discuss as a team. So it's 5 or 6 times 15 minutes if you want.
Okay, perfect, excellent. Alex, you're a little bit more on the VC side of things, investor side of things, but you also have a fantastic background in the industry, which is very valuable, I believe. And what's your view? So you see this startup, you see this young company. What are the first things that you try to find out?
I think, in my view, there are like two kinds of founders for medtech startups. One is the ones approaching it from the engineer perspective, saying, oh, there's a problem I want to solve, but they have no idea about the clinical environment or the whole healthcare situation. And then there's the second one in which a clinician is actually approaching it and that they understand it, but they need help with engineering and the commercialization part. So I think the first step for me is to figure out, okay, which category of startups they are in. And then for me, the next step is just talking with them a bit and just trying to figure out like how well do they understand the like regulatory path ahead of them, the evidence generation, as well as commercialization, as well as the needs to like prove the safety and efficacy of their device. And from there, usually I spend time to actually help get them ready and like their future roadmaps straight and get them ready, prepared for the pre-seed type funding, then go to the next step.
So help get ready. What does it look like? You parachute like 3 advisors into the poor startup, or how does it all work?
So I think most of my time right now, it's like 80% I think is on the engineer side, because people getting into and trying to fix a problem in the healthcare, but they don't quite understand the ecosystem and how all the different like the payers and the providers and patients, how all of them interact with each other. And I think a lot of my time is spent just advising them and just giving them a quick overview of the industry and how they get reimbursed, like who is actually the roles, like doctors, nurses, the whole healthcare system, like what the roles are, and getting them up to speed on that, and then figuring out what is a, I guess, rational commercialization plan for their product and how it fits into the ecosystem.
Yeah, we still see these startups that come from a very technical side, deep insights into a technology, did their PhD at ETH on some technology, but not enough understanding of what the market really needs, the product market fit. And that's why the CB Insight statistic still lists no market need as the #1 reason for failure, right? Roberto, when the companies come to you, they're already a little bit further down the road. I mean, you help them to bridge, I would say, also into the exit world, into the next buyer, as you laid out. What are the criteria for you? Do I assume correctly that most companies, when you see them, have this product market fit, or are you helping with that as well?
Typically, they would come when they have a huge important next step to do, where then the founders and then actually the investors then, because want to do the next step and really need to do the next strategic step. So often it's really where they say, look, we need to do the next step. We need a strategic buyer which can leverage us. It's not the search for the next VC sponsor, because as we heard, normally VCs they have the good companies on their radar. But there comes then a stage where they want and they look for somebody who can give much more strategic input, be it on management level, or often it's actually the distribution which they want to do the next step, or to enter specific markets like US or Asia or so. Right. That's where they come to us, and for us it's important that the company is financed, of course, and they have a certain stage where strategic buyers can be interested in, because it's not the work they want to do. So that's the timing there is important.
For our panelists, for our participants out there, Roberto, when you say they have to have a certain stage, what does that mean? I give you some choices: CE or FDA mark, key opinion leaders in place, first revenue of 1 million, first revenue of 10 million, reimbursement in place? What is it that they should bring to you?
Well, our experience is that you should have, when is a company interesting, I'm just generalizing, huh? There are always exceptions, but typically when is a company interesting to a strategic buyer? It's when the product has been put on the market successfully, and it's a huge success. Growth rates are there, so the market says it's something we have been waiting for. It's a success, and the company then needs funding to do either the qualification to enter the US market, or they need they need to set up the distribution, and then the company comes and says, okay, we just can take that product and distribute it through our channels.
Right.
That may be a typical situation.
I mean, from my own experience at Medtronic, which is also a big strategic player purchasing startups, I was sometimes shocked how little the startup did research about the strategic player, meaning they had no idea why Medtronic could be interested in the startup. They just talked about the startup, right? So maybe that is also something, if you agree, that we could recommend to startups. Make a list of the strategic buyers, and they're not so many. No, there's not hundreds. There's 5, there's 10. And I always say, look, make a piece of paper for each of these 10, write down the names of the 3, 4, 5 key people. Because that's, I think, also where you can help, Roberto, is finding the right strategic, but also to find the right people in the strategic. Is that right?
Yes, so the strategic rationale is extremely important. It has to, either that company, because sometimes these companies also have the new products and successful company on their radars, sometimes not, but they certainly need a strategic rationale, because what is important within a buyer, strategic buyer, you need somebody who really pushes that project forward. If you don't have somebody within that company which comes from normally from an operational line, why do they need it? And so, because often you have a leader within a specific department who says, hey, that's exactly what we need for our department, product department or so, to make the next step, okay, or to be successful. And so, and you need that within the organization. It's not the advisor who comes or the company itself who says, hey, what they can do is can say, look, this is probably what you need. And then you need somebody inside who says, yes, that's what we need, because he has to know what is preventing the corporate, not what would prevent the company not to move on.
Right. Very good. So, Carsten, I mean, you and I also see, and if I look at the participants in the call, I see a lot of familiar names, and I see a lot of startups that are still a little bit in the early phase of their journey. So, besides the product market fit, and Alex, I'll ask you the same question, so you already can start thinking about it. What are the failures? What are these guys doing wrong? Because inevitably, a number of these startups will fail. Also, a number of the startups that are in this call will fail. And we want to alert them to some of the issues that they encounter. So what is it that you typically see in your daily practice as an investor? Where do you say, why why didn't they get this right?
There are plenty of things that you can go wrong, and it can be from the cap table, simple things that doesn't have to do anything with the market or so on. I would say, but the companies or the founders are in love with their solution, and I think they should be in love with the problem. And that's a big element that we see. So we see decks where there are 5 slides about the solution, and I prefer a deck where I have 5 slides about the problem. That tells me already something about the approach. But that's
let's
also
say 5 slides on the uniqueness of the solution and why it's better than what we're having today, right?
Yeah, but I mean, I'm not saying that we don't care about the solution, but I like to feel this passion for solving the problem.
Yeah.
So this is the problem. This is the population that has this problem. These are the deciders. This is the purchasing department. These are the doctors, whatever. But the more I see that someone understands the problem,
yeah,
and the more I fall in love with the project.
Right.
So that,
and the more they understand all the stakeholders involved, because it's normally quite easy to find 2 or 3 doctors that like your product, plus your mother, plus your uncle, but that's not sufficient, right? And you just said a very important word, the purchasing department. You know, they need to like it. These are tough folks.
Yeah, there are many stakeholders involved. Yeah.
Good.
But then again, we see Heiko thing in industries, then you have a cap table of 20, 40 small investors putting in 5,000, 10,000. That's something that raises some questions for an exit in the future. These are elements, whatever, too many founders. You don't know who is in the driver's seat. Things are often unrelated to market or quality of technology or whatever, but that can be very detrimental to the success of the companies.
Quick side question to Thomas, even though you're not on the panel, but while we have you, when I go to SICTIC and SICTIC provides 6, 7 business angels that each put 100,000 francs, do I have 7 names on the cap table or do I have 1 name on the cap table?
I mean, we looked in the syndication. There's a possibility to syndicate with a simple partnership, but it has some disadvantages also. What we recommend is that you delegate voting rights of those which have very few shares to the lead investor.
Okay.
And then you have like an automatic proxy, and then it's very easy to handle. And what's more important than whether you syndicate or not is that you have one point of contact on the investor side, which activates the other investors. So if you don't know who has which network or who could be helpful with what type of topics, it's great if you have one investor which knows the investor base very, very well and also has exchange with the investors, not just once in a year, but more frequently.
Okay, good. Thank you, Thomas.
But you're forcing people into a syndicate. If you use like an SPV structure, would mean everybody would need to be qualified investors. We want to avoid that. So we have a bigger selection of investors here.
Got it. Okay, thank you, Thomas. Alex, so Carsten said you have to be in love with the solution. You have to really kind of let go a little bit about your love to technology. You just said you talk a lot to engineers. So how is your experience with that? I mean, being an engineer myself, I know we love to have a lot of buttons and so on and so forth. So what's your experience here? Are these engineers coachable?
I would say yes. There are engineers on both sides of the spectrum. And I think from my experience interacting with many startups, like one of the reasons they fail is regulatory avoidance. I've encountered many people like they're really afraid of just getting regulatory approval. So they waste a lot of time and energy saying, oh, if we did this, maybe we won't have to get regulatory approval, or we can go for a lower class. And like a lot of time and energy is spent trying to go around it. And then in the end, they find out, no, they have to go through the proper procedures and get the regular correct class for their device. And in my experience, at least, the FDA is a lot more open. Just like go engage them, ask them questions, tell them what you're thinking and planning to do, and they can steer you on the proper approval path, and that will save you a lot of time and money in the long run. So TÜV is not as friendly or so, but still, going the proper path will definitely be worth it in the long run for startups. And number two, I think, is underestimating the amount of funding needed. I guess, in my opinion, like, startups take time and there's risks in that. But for medtech startups, it takes even longer time and even more money. First of all, you need to get the money to get regulatory approval. So depending on the type of device you have or so, you need to go through to prove this safety of the device. So that's trials, which takes years or months to get and complete to get your data. And second of all, I think what's unique to like professional clinical medical devices is that you also need to prove the efficacy or cost effectiveness of your solution versus existing solutions out there, which means another study, another trial. And I think a lot of the founders saying, hey, I've got this cool product. It's like so obvious, it's better. But it's like, again, you need to prove that to the payers. And you need to like budget that into your long-term plan and make sure you do have enough funding for that, and not like run out at the last minute and say, oh my God, and scrambling for funds.
Got it. Okay. And Roberto, also to get your perspective on this, when you see the companies, they're much further already in the process. They have regulatory, they have revenue, they have customers, they have growth. Can they still screw up? Or is that the good phase to be in?
Actually, the best one of, the question to us is always, when is the best moment to sell a company? And in my experience, the best moment is if you are doing medical devices where you need clinical trials, then it's after the third one. And then a next good point would be once you have FDA approval. And because FDA approval is probably one of the most important, if you need it for your device, then typically you would need it if you are in that space. Why is that important? Because US market is so important. Once you are in the US market, you have you're playing a whole new game. And there is the question, are you distributing it by yourself, or you have a distributor, and that costs a lot of money. And that's basically where we see where most people then start thinking, hey, that's basically where we want to be. So once you have FDA approval, it really depends on how quick also there you can test the market, and that would be a good point in time. Once you have FDA approval and you have a good distribution, typically, you are at the stage where you don't really want to sell, because you're doing, unless you have a really good offer and you have competitors in the sense that the strategic buyers who are in competition among themselves, and they want to buy you because they want to be, as you said, you have a limited number of potential buyers which can finance certain amounts, and then they start typically competing against each other, and that makes it interesting.
That makes it very good. Okay, good. I mean, you already gave me the right keyword here, which is USA. I mean, that's a very important topic since a couple of years, particularly, as most of you in the call know. The regulatory practice has changed pretty dramatically in Europe with a move from MDD to MDR. Things got a lot tougher. There's also for software, there's more regulatory aspects, etc. While the FDA still allows the 510(k) pathway and so on and so forth. Carsten, some startups that you're involved with, are also kind of looking with more than one eye into the US market. I sometimes get the feeling from some startup CEOs that they paint the picture a little bit too rosy, that they believe it's very simple, FDA, no problem, pre-sub meeting, bring some, fill out some forms, have FDA, and then I just throw the product over the fence to the US and have some distributors and they'll sell it. Let's try to put some reality into that, particularly from you, Carsten, for the startup perspective, from you, Alex, from the distributor and clinic perspective. You have a lot of experience also with the big clinic groups, and then also with Roberto from a US buyer perspective. Starting with you, Carsten.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say the going to the US is maybe a strategy, but you should know what you're trying to do here. The FDA has a big advantage in a sense that it is more predictable than the European notified body situation, but it's not easier and it requires a lot of preparation. It's not a non-brainer that, as you said, you're going to have that Q-sub meeting and then you can study. You need to prepare all this very well to not to waste money in all these meetings. Alex already said the FDA is approachable. That's my experience, at least. You can discuss with them, but they know also very well what they expect from you, and if you cannot deliver this, you will have a hard time to convince them. Then it's yes, it's English. Most of us speak English now, but we are still Europeans, and it requires a lot of presence over there. Don't underestimate this. You need to be like kind of immersed into that ecosystem to deal with them.
Right.
But we definitely look. I mean, you know the company where I'm on the board, so we definitely look into going into the US and also selling there. And it is a viable because it's more predictable. We know if we do our job right, we can kind of know what we can expect.
Is it realistic though, and that goes to you, Carsten, as well as Alex, is it realistic to kind of remote control a US organization then from Switzerland when you're 6 or 9 hours away? I sometimes have the feeling say, yeah, we go FDA first, and then I say, okay, did you already talk to your spouse about moving to the US? And I mean, we heard from Alex in the intro that he's trying to balance a life between Los Angeles and Zurich, which has its ups and downs, I would say. Yeah. How do you see that, both of you?
If you start a subsidiary in the US, I would definitely recommend to go on the East Coast and not on the West Coast. So then you have only 6-hour time difference. And then I think the regulatory, from my perspective, and I'm curious to know what Alex says, from the regulatory point of view, I think it's doable. As soon as you start selling, I would say you need to consider relocation of top management.
I fully agree, Carsten, with that. It's like regulatory, it's possible to do remotely through like third-party consulting companies or so. They can file everything for you. But from the actual operation on the sales side, you run into two, I guess, obstacles. First is you need a registered agent in the country for selling the device and doing the post-market surveillance of it, the device, in case of any issues, recalls, or like problems that's encountered. And that's requires something to be set up. And I think it requires a lot of like hands-on work and your presence there to get it up and running properly. Or I guess the other alternative to that is you turn to distributors. But yeah, you have to give them a cut of that. Make sure you find the right distributors to represent your product. You also have to give them a lot of support and training for it. So it's not easy to do just purely remotely or so. There's a lot of work, no matter if you choose to do it yourself or like try to outsource it to distributors. And I think Some other comments about the US market, like the FDA is really friendly in some ways because you can ask them questions and they're open to like new devices. You can have Q&A meetings with them to inform them what you're intending. And another advantage of the US is it's, again, for better or worse, the largest medical market in the world. And the one biggest benefit of it is I see that the US is one single market. So labeling, instruction manuals, you can just do English and one set. When I was selling stuff to Europe, it's like, fine, you get the CE mark, and then your challenges just begin. Spain wants their logos or so in Spanish. Italy, the same thing in Italian, German, and France. So even though you got the one single CE mark, your instruction manuals, your labels for the products, you have to come up with individual country variants for it, which quickly snowballs in terms of complexity and just logistical like effort. So I guess that's some of the advantages of the US versus the European market.
Yep.
And then lastly, I would just say, like, if you have something truly unique, then you would probably be going to some of the top academic hospitals or so, getting the doctors to use it, try it, publish papers and build credibility for it. But if it's an alternative to existing solutions or so, what you end up dealing with is a lot of the hospitals in the US have ended up joining group purchasing organizations. So they buy in bulk through like aggregate their purchasing power through one single organization. So you can't really sell direct to the hospital. You have to go negotiate with those GPOs and get on their list, provide them with a price. And it also gets tricky too, because you have to give them a best price. You can turn around and go to another hospital and offer them a different price. So there are complexities in getting your product to market in the US.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. Before I go over to Roberto, I will remind our participants that it is possible to ask questions. So we'll soon come to the Q&A part of this webinar. So there is a way, I don't know where, but somewhere in this technology to place your questions. Yeah, I also see that sometimes that medtech startups in Switzerland are thinking, oh yeah, FDA is so much easier, let's do that. But we're not going to move over. We can do it from here. But you know, we hire a guy, and then they don't have money to hire a really, really good expert. Instead, they hire Jeff in Ohio, and suddenly the whole fate of the company is hinged on Jeff in Ohio, who is willing to work for a startup salary for a Swiss company, which may or may not work out. Unfortunately, sometimes I see it not work out very well, and Jeff gets another job, and suddenly your whole thing falls apart. The other tricky thing, and maybe Alex or Roberto, you can confirm, I understand, is that the reimbursement scheme in the United States is very tricky. And I remind all of you, the Holy Trinity is IP, regulatory, and reimbursement. Somebody's got to pay for that damn thing, right? And I understand that you have Medicare, Medicaid, private groups, veterinary, Army. Somebody told me there's about 192 different reimbursement schemes. Is that easy or is that tricky? Alex, you've been on the other side.
I'll probably start. So I think Medicare is the biggest payer in the US. That's the government, but it's only for the population retired, like 65 plus. Typically, most people before that, during working age or so, get it through their employers. And there's like, I don't know, like 20 or so, I mean, at least 10 large insurance companies. Each of them have their own reimbursement rates for the different procedures or so. I mean, you can have like two hospitals in the same block and both of them will get reimbursed different rates, and just depends on what they negotiated with the different insurance companies. So from a startup's perspective, you need to get your device onto the market, and then you need to negotiate, like get it reimbursed with each of those, I guess, insurance companies individually. And then lastly, you also need to make sure that your device has a procedure code so that the providers, which is the doctors, actually have a code that they can bill or use your device with, so they get paid.
And how do you get this procedure code?
Yeah, you have to apply for it or like figure out like if it's an existing treatment or so, where your device falls under. Like creating a new one is definitely a lot more difficult. And the easier way is like if you, let's say it's a surgery for something, you can fit your product into a certain GPT or CPT code under there to make sure that the doctor gets paid for doing using a product.
Good. Roberto, you already shared with us a bit of the US perspective. I want to go a little bit more into this direction. So you're also dealing with US buyers. Many of the strategic players are in the US, like particularly in MedTech. I think of Zimmer, Stryker, Johnson & Johnson, Medtronic. These are all US companies in one way or another. What's your experience? What are the US buyers particularly looking into?
Oh, it really depends on the product, on the market. It really depends on that. Now the Medtronics, the Zimmer, and etc. They were actively looking, for instance, in surgical robotics, etc. It really depends on the market. You don't have the same buyers for any of these markets. So it really depends on the product you have.
So what for the three of you? So what's the best advice if I want to go the US route, and then we leave the US topic? Is there a recipe for that? I know we have also Kaspar among the participants who runs the Swiss US Accelerator, also very helpful program helping startups from Switzerland to make it in the US. But is there a checklist 1, 2, 3, like you just said, Alex? Hey, get a reimbursement code, get FDA right, make a pre-sub meeting, find a distributor. That's how you do it. Is there something like that, or does everybody have to find his or her own way?
Maybe. Go ahead, Carsten.
My recommendation is really try to find an experienced consultant who has done it before and who can really help you to prepare the Q-sub meetings and the submission of the documentation and discuss it, because the MedTech is so large, it's very difficult to give an advice for all kinds of products that could fall under MedTech, Heiko. So having an experienced consultant is definitely worth the money.
Yeah. Alex?
I think for me is get the regulatory approval, publish papers showing the effectiveness of your device, and hopefully number 3 is get the interest of one of the medtech companies out there, Johnson & Johnson, Medtronic, Boston or something, and sell it to them. Like that's what they're good at. They can get they've got the distributors, they can get the reimbursement, they've got whole organizations in place doing that for you. I think that is probably a easier route and balancing the amount of effort and the payback, in my opinion, rather than try to do it all yourself.
Quick question to Thomas and Joel. Do we have questions? I don't see any.
No, Corny, no questions. Those that want to submit, just go to the Q&A button and submit your question, please.
Good. If not, that's also fine. Huh? So we have enough topics, and we're almost at the end of the hour anyway. So maybe a last question to the three of you. You made it very clear what kind of maturity you would like to see in a startup approaching you, from those startups and those investors in the room in this call. How easy is it to approach you? Can I just go to Carsten@laue.com and say, hey, here's my startup, or to Alex or to Roberto? What's your preferred entry route? I'm sure there's a lot of participants who would like to get in touch with you, either because they have a startup at a maturity that fits you, earlier stage with Carsten and Alex, mid stage with Alex and Roberto, and later stage with Roberto in particularly when you were going into the M&A route, or that like to offer, that like to get your advice on something. maybe the three of you, how open are you to that?
Just
Yes.
got 2 questions for after this one.
Okay, then we quick. Yeah, certainly you can send a mail to me.
Yeah.
Project that could potentially go into our deal flow pipeline, then I would forward it to my colleagues. Best thing, however, I would say is try to catch me at one of the events and talk to me.
That's a good one. Good. Alex? Quick
For me, send me a LinkedIn message or just send me an email. Happy to connect and talk, especially if you've got a new product or idea and just want to know more about the industry.
Very good. Roberto?
Yes, likewise, in the sense that the same, you can just drop me an email or call me. So we always talk to people who also, if it's not, just to share our thoughts, to see where they are and maybe what to do as a next step. So we're happy to talk and to share ideas, and we're happy to share our experience.
Very good. So quickly, we just got some last minute questions that I want to throw into our panelists round. One is from Kanika, how to approach the big company in the USA for a distribution deal. I think probably Alex or Roberto, you're well positioned to answer. You just walk up to them at a congress and say, hello, Medtronic, I have a new product for you, here, sell it.
Yeah, that's tricky. I guess a lot of times, if you can get the attention, like go to a conference, present your paper or so, and the ideal case is like you get a lot of attention about how great your product is, and they will be the ones reaching out to you.
Yeah.
But if you have to go the cold call route, like potentially go through doctors or so, they've got connections to the companies, they can recommend you, or it's like you have to find them through LinkedIn and the conferences or so, and talking to reps and hoping to get connected to the right decision maker.
I also recommend to try to familiarize yourself very well with the strategics that are in your area, so you also understand the individuals. And I mean, when I speak, I know that one of the innovation officers at Johnson & Johnson, he's telling me, look, it takes me 3 months internally to even speak to all the people who are relevant. So it can be very complex. Okay. And then another question we have is, so FDA, if we go FDA first, would it also make sense to go for investors in North America? Any opinions on that one?
Well, as a rule of thumb, I would say, I would turn the quote the other way around. Only go to US investors when you have a US plan.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay, thank you very much. Good. We're running already a few minutes over time, so now some of you are waking up and putting the questions. You can shoot them to us at a later time. I promised to keep a minute for Thomas at the end to say the presidential closing word. I already want to thank you, the participants, for being so open in this call. I hope for you, the participants, this was useful. And it was my pleasure to run you through this seminar today on Election Day. I'll hand it over back to Thomas. Thank you all.
Thanks a lot for moderating, Heiko. Very insightful. Of course, there's lots more to discuss, especially if you have a specific case. Now we're going to present many more startups. We still have some events this year. So the next Invest Day is November 14th in Zurich with UBS. Going to have another one in Lausanne on the November 28th. And also next year, we're going to have many more events. First one in February at the ETH AI Center, and then March 12th will be the MedTech Invest Day. So you're going to get all of that in the follow-up email, also the link to the report, the M&A report that was mentioned, and the LinkedIn profiles of our speakers here, so you can connect. And yeah, we really hope you got something out of it. And now you learned about the fascinating new startup type to invest in, right? So I'll give it to Heiko to finish up.
Great. Well, once again, thank you very much. Thank you, SICTIC, for organizing this, the technology, the invitations, and everything. Thank you also, Gigetsic, for presenting CTEM Startup Club, which are co-organizers of this event. I also want to alert you that in March, we have the physical meeting it's organized also by SICTIC, CTEM Startup Club in Bern, where you can see us all live and in reality. I want to thank particularly the panelists who took the time to join us on this board. Your inputs were extremely insightful. Thank you, Joel, who just popped up here, running all the technology in the background. There's a lot of organization that even goes into a simple seminar like that. I look forward to be in touch with many of you and to see your startup journey, hopefully to great success. And I wish you now a great afternoon. Thank you for joining this webinar.
Thank you, Heiko.
Thank you all.
Good afternoon,
Thanks,
everyone.
bye.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.